Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. Today we have an interesting topic to talk about, and I have a panel. You have seen them severally. So today we want to talk about obesity. We want to talk about obesity, but zero in on childhood obesity, because we are at a place where our kids, our kids, all of us, they are gonna be obese in a few years if they already ain't obese at this point. And the reason being, the food we are feeding them at home and the food that they are eating, at school is contributing towards them gaining weight and becoming obese, and it's becoming a crisis, a crisis. And this is a crisis that even the World Health Organization has taken note of, and they are working towards educating kids. They are working towards educating parents, nutrition education or information dissemination, so that people know that these foods, you need to regulate them. You need to be active. Of course, food and activity level goes hand in hand. And then you also need to be keen on where you are sourcing your food. So we want to talk about all these issues, specifically surrounding childhood obesity. So on this, my right hand, I have Carol Wangechi, who is a farmer and an entrepreneur, and also a parent. Of course, we are all parents. Not of course, but we are all parents, and we have kids, some of whom have become obese and whom we want to prevent them from becoming obese. Here I have Violet Matiru, and she's also a parent, and she's going to talk about the struggles she has faced with her child becoming obese over the last few years, post-COVID. Yeah. He was healthy and active pre-COVID. Post-COVID, weight has come with all its siblings, and it's becoming a worrying situation. So let's start with you, but I'll regulate you. Let's start with Violet. I will cut you down. Tell us about what you feel about this childhood obesity thing.
No, I think for me, when I look at Kenya, I think childhood obesity is now. So just from observing, I think nutrition in our country, especially among the middle class, obesity is now, it's a crisis, especially among the children. And not just among the children, but also among us as the parents. And to me, I think the issue of obesity is both because of the volumes of food we are consuming. We went down that route where we were told that you're supposed to eat 3 meals per day, and then snacks in between, which we imported from the Western world. Yet in traditional setups, people used to actually carry a chunk of the mukimo matahas, which they would go to the farm with, eat once per day, and then only come in the evening to eat. So our bodies are so used to food all the time. So it's almost all the time you're supposed to be having food in your stomach. So it's causing a lot of problems. And then the types of food we are feeding our children.
Before you go to type about the number of meals we take in a day, that was popularized, but we weren't told to reduce, to check on the portions. And then our plates became big. Remember we used to use bakuli or those metallic plates. Okay. And even me, I think there was a standard size of a plate that used to exist in our house. But right now we have platters, very big plates. I have done a video on if plate size matters, and it does, because especially even if it's at home, let's not even talk about buffet. If it's at home and you have that large plate, you'll feel the urge to fill it up with food. And then and when you continue doing that for a period of time, your brain will realize, we are eating a lot, so let's continue. So you gain weight even somehow unconsciously. But if your plate size is okay, you won't necessarily take a big quantity of food. Even if you take those 3 meals and 2 snacks in between, it will still be okay. But again, as you were saying, we need to watch on the type of foods that we are eating.
And so for me, it's been a struggle to, not just for myself, but also even for as you're bringing up kids, to explain to them that regulate yourself. Don't put pile a huge amount of food, then you struggle to finish it. Put some food, then you can always go for a bit more if you need, and by that time you don't have. So it's even our own food discipline, the way we deal with food. And then it's almost like there's people who are brought up with very little food growing up. So now they have a crisis mode always. They pile up fridges.
Let me tell you what it is about. It's also something mental. Whereby, because even our culture, we were hunters and gatherers. So we had to look for food, and when we found it, we ate a lot. And then now food is easily accessible.
So we are no longer hunting.
We are not hunting, and we are still eating a lot when we find the food. Then we are stocking our fridges with, of course, if there's food in the fridge, it's most likely highly processed, ultra processed. I learned that term recently. So what happens is you pile up your fridge, and it's like you're hoarding food, because we have come from a place of lack. Now you have become a little bit enabled, and stop.
It's okay.
You've come to a place where you are a little bit enabled, and you feel like we need to buy a lot of food so that we don't lack, my children don't lack, and it's affecting our weight gain. So those are things to look at, the quantity and the types of food. Thanks, Violet. Let's talk to Carol.
So I think as you've talked about hunting and gathering, you notice that for you to hunt, you have to go out into the forest, you have to, the women were tilling and the men were out there hunting for game. So their bodies are moving. There's a lot of burning of calories. There's a lot of activity. So now, when we can just drive over to the supermarket, get all the food we want and stock it up in the fridge, there's really no physical activity. So even as we talk about nutrition, we need people to go back to exercising at least once a day. Any given time that you're able to even drop off, if you're using public means, drop off 2 stages before your house and walk the rest of the distance, and then run, jog, skip. So I wanted to mention about a certain aspiring presidential candidate some years back, and people laughed when he said that you eat small portions. He said there's space in your stomach for food, space for water, and space for air. So you don't fill your tummy up, to the brim until you feel something has, stuck right up there. And people laughed. Of course, he was speaking from a religious perspective, but it makes a lot of nutritional sense that you don't fill up, like my colleagues were saying. Don't fill up. Eat small portions. Leave space for water and leave space for air. For air. So that was simply telling us to eat the right foods, and don't pack up on too much carbohydrates and too much sugar. So this is a very hard conversation to have because we don't have the discipline to do this. We don't have the discipline. So the other aspect is what is on your plate. Do we question what is on our plate? Do you look at your plate and say, where is this sugar coming from? How was it made? How was it processed?
Food traceability.
Yes. Don't do that. Right? So do you grow your own maize? Do you mill your own flour? So if you don't, then you don't own that food. You're eating something that was brought to you, so you cannot qualify its quality. So we need to question what is on our plates. Let's go back to our old foods.
It's a hard conversation for sure, because changing people's mindsets has become the hardest thing to do. And the good thing, when you change someone's perspective or mindset, is to call them, there's a name we were taught in KAPs, knowledge, attitude, and I think preference, like what you know about food, the attitude, like the reason you're talking about people eating a lot is also because when I was a child, because of that scarcity of food, we were somehow taught to finish the food that's on your plate by our parents, including being force-fed. Like you are full, but they're insisting finish the food because somehow they're not sure when maybe the next meal might be at. So you find that has still precipitated even into our households. Now where if I serve my son, I want him to finish that food even if he's full, and I can tell really he's full, but you still want him to finish the food on his plate. Even now when you know for sure somehow, okay, not for sure, but you do, but you're talking about middle income households, you do somehow know that the next meal is somehow assured, yeah? So you're still force feeding your child, and you know he will still have a snack at 4, for example, or he will still have a full meal at supper, but you're still force feeding him during lunch. So for one thing, like we talked about the ballistic surgery, is it called that? And where people are shrinking the gut. So when you're force feeding, you are actually expanding that child's gut. Because you know the stomach lining has sensors, and when it's full, it will expand, it will remain like that. Like it will learn, maybe we need to be this size. And then also the mind is also accepting that large quantity of food. So there are so many, that's the attitude or the knowledge aspect. Then you need to change the preferences. Like Josie, I was talking to, there's a live stream I was on, and someone is saying like they cannot take boiled cassava. If you are here and you are listening, you know yourself, they cannot take boiled cassava because they had it at a period in their lives where they felt they were poor or had scarcity. You know, cassava, we are advocating for cassava flour, cassava for breakfast and all this, but for that particular person, they can't have cassava because they associate it with something. So they have these food preferences shaped by the experiences we had way back then, as parents, and even as children, we are also giving them a bad experience with food because they're gonna hate some food, they're gonna prefer something, and that's why you find when you go out with your kid and they will prefer to eat whatever fast foods because they know at home I'll go back and I'll be force-fed rice, so why should I have rice when I'm out here? So now let's shift this and talk about foods in schools. We haven't really exhausted what we should feed our kids while at home, but let's at least try to, one, not force, reduce the quantity, and two, the types of food that you are eating, try and get some traceability. If you can shop from us, shop from the Kikuyu Organic Farmers Market, from any other organic market, so that you can have a little bit of traceability, and then over time you can be able to, increase the percentage of food or products in your household that are actually organic. I know we might not be able to go organic on flour 100% or sugar or all these things, but you can increase the percentage of food items in your household that are actually organic. Now let's go to schools, because this is where children are spending a lot of time and eating 2 to 3 meals. 2 to 3 meals actually, because even if they are being picked, they will have 10 a.m. snack, lunchtime, and before they leave school. So those are 3 out of the 5. So how should we as parents influence our kids and hopefully over time influence these school administrators to feed children good food? They're talking about going back to the basics. We have to, even these kids, the school feeding system needs to go back to the basics. And if you're here and you feel like this conversation is not relevant, we are talking about middle income earners. We know the schools where our children are going, some of them are being fed highly processed foods. Let me just say, because I'm not mentioning a brand, they're being fed sausages, they're being fed fries, they're being fed spaghetti and these cupcakes with a lot of sugar and flour and all these things. And first of all, these are foods that are exciting, so the kids will keep craving the foods. Even like their psychological wiring, whenever they know lunch is fries and whatever, they'll be more excited that day than when they are being served ugali or when they are being served rice. So let's talk about this. Let's first say what we can change. How can we influence our kids to eat better, like reduce the quantities, and then how can we influence schools, feeding systems and the administrators to change, and other parents, because we are only a small percentage who are thinking like this, maybe, I don't know. But parents, we need to change what our kids prefer, even when they're going to school, when we're taking them out, like when it's not at home, we need to influence them to eat right, then we go to the schools and influence them. Let's talk to Violet because she's the one who has the experience with that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it is us parents putting pressure on schools to feed our children, one, a lot of food, two, a lot of these highly processed foods, because we see them as a status symbol. Our big problem, if we could address the problems from the parents, us as parents. So when we once went for a meeting at our school, and one of the parents asked why the school does not have a tuck shop, a canteen where the kids can buy additional snacks.
Wow.
And some of us were horrified, but it was interesting that it came from a parent. Parents believe that middle class, us, I'm not pointing our fingers. Middle class earners believe that if you're eating sausages, it is a sign that you're well off, that you're prosperous. If you're eating ham, if you're eating beef brawn, if you're eating smoky, not even smoky sausages, because smokies are seen more as lower class. So it is us putting pressure on these schools. So how do the schools respond? The schools respond by producing a lot of food to be available to our children with no limits. So a child is being allowed, even if they make chapatis, they allow that child to eat as many chapatis as they will eat. So there is no break. So if we can address this problem from the homes, and I think you, the nutritionists who are trained as nutritionists, you have a big job, because if you could help the parents, then the parents will put pressure on the schools. So right now it's the other way around. The parents are putting pressure on the schools to destroy our children.
We're going back to the KAP, the practices. Because now the parents are the ones who are feeling they need this status symbol. And it's good you say symbol, because there's an interesting perspective we learned that whenever you have come from a place of lack, or from a place of like you don't have the freedom even in terms of food. There's something about food sovereignty that we need to address. We have been limited in terms of our food choices, and our food choices are also interrupted with during the colonial period. The things we used to eat, new things were brought, and for some reason we associated them. Like when you access them, because they were from the colonists, when you access them, you feel like umefika, like you have gotten there, and this mindset has not left us. So right now we want those status symbols. We are like there's someone who said that they visited now an upper class household, and they were surprised to be served washes, domas, I think, and they actually felt offended that they were served domas because they expected bread and sausages and all the like, because this is a rich household. So you can see there's that perspective whereby people want to eat these foods because they feel they want to be prosperous. And also another thing, although at least now it has reversed, about the big kitambi for men. It was also seen,
a sign
of prosperity, or a symbol of prosperity, and it ruined a lot of people because it came with diabetes and hypertension. And eventually these people have had to really struggle. And when just recently we lost a relative to kidney problems, but they were highly associated with obesity and diabetes. A man, and he was very huge, and we could tell that weight, that belly weight, is becoming a problem. So let's think 20 years into the future, our kids will have gained such kind of weight because of the foods they are eating. And you know, when we as parents are pressurizing schools to get this food, who are we empowering? At the back of it, we are empowering the big corporations, because they are the ones who are supplying the different kinds of meats, the different kinds of processed products. You know, we are not empowering SMEs and small farmers when we are insisting to schools to feed our children processed foods. That's for sure.
And it's true, because it's also the foods we associate with festivities. When every time there used to be Christmas, there used to be the adverts in the old times, holidays are coming, always Coca-Cola, and it was a plate, a table with Coca-Cola, a lot of cake, a lot of chicken, fried chicken. So those foods, when now people become middle class, If they can afford to have them every day, they stock up Coca-Cola in the fridge. They'll stock up sausages in the fridge, because it's a sign that now we can live this life of prosperity every day.
During the season,
during the season, yeah. So until we break that, what is it we celebrate with? Until we start associating our celebration with healthy food, we'll always have problems.
Yeah, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that example you gave of somebody about thinking about cassava. It is time to bring back, and I'm going to say this, I know it's being recorded, it's time to bring the sexy back to our old foods. Cassava, you can roast it. You can spruce up your foods. You can spruce up your arrowroot. Yeah, so that's one. Number two, let's remember, diseases generate from the stomach. So, since we are talking about schools, you will notice there's a lot of coughing in schools, there's a lot of health issues, allergies and flus, you know. And it's amazing when a child is coughing, they go and they're given these cough syrups that are super sweet, you know. And so it's such a vicious cycle. So I think it's time that we let people know that our indigenous foods, like sorghum, cassava, doma, guashe, sweet potatoes and arrowroots, they're actually associated with poverty.
Yeah, but I think it's because they were the ones that are available during those
back in the years,
during those periods of even of famine. But you need to think, why were they available during famine? Those are drought-resistant food like cassava, and even the fruits that were available during those periods. Like, it needs to teach us something.
It does.
And we need to change our perspective that these were really not associated with poverty. Yes, there might have been lack because there was famine, but if this crop was available, like, we really should celebrate it.
Because it's amazing, because you'll notice in public schools, they'll be given porridge made of wimbi or utama. Right? That's a healthy option. But you think that if I take my child to a school, they're being given porridge, I've not made it in life. So it's still the same conversation we are talking about associating bad foods or unhealthy foods with
prosperity
and tradition.
But it is time now to bring wealth back to our natural foods that did not call for pesticides.
Yeah, we need to break that mentality. These were associated with poverty, and I'm sorry that particular individual associated them with poverty, even githeri, and even that porridge, because I was just talking the other day about why githeri are. Now when I went and got educated, I learned it's a complete meal. Complete in terms of amino acids, like the ones available in maize complement those available in beans, and you get a complete meal. That's why we really didn't experience malnutrition.
That's true.
When we could eat the githeri and when we could eat the cassava, those who could eat fruits, we didn't experience malnutrition.
But now the scary thing is, because they have realized that Kenyans are going back to the indigenous foods, the guashe, domas. So the agrochemical industries are really targeted. The reason why I started working with organic, trying to look for people to train farmers on organic, is because we were told that they are using a glyphosate Roundup to clear the areas next to the rivers where they plant doma. So now our tubers are highly toxic. So if you're sourcing for these doma, guashe, please look out for organic, organically grown, because they are concentrating a lot of poisons now because of the chemicals they are being used. So that, to me, it's scary, because the corporations have realized that people are trying to go back to their traditional foods, and they've injected themselves poison.
And going by what you said, the glyphosate, it's Roundup.
Yeah, Roundup.
The amazing thing is, it's the brand name. The amazing thing is, it is so cheap and readily available in Kenyan agrovet shelves, yet it is banned among many others, banned in their countries of origin. Because because we are not looking at our food security. All we want to do is pile up food in our plates.
And it's scary because even the government was giving Roundup as part of a starter kit.
Yes.
There was a project which was funded by IFAD to promote the ASAL, the climate tolerance.
And they give Roundup.
And they were giving Roundup as part of the starter pack. And we actually went, because we did a whole baseline survey along Athi River, when it starts from Bagathi River, from the water forest. So the farmers were telling us that they're actually now preferring to use Roundup to dry the weeds and then grow the crops instead of getting manual labor to weed the farm. So it's a scary situation. We need to watch out. And I don't know,
you shared recently about the active ingredients in pesticide and something. Was it the atlas? What was it?
The booklet.
The atlas.
The pesticide atlas.
Yes, the pesticide atlas. Because now that atlas, was it prepared by
there was I think Root to Food.
Yeah. So Root to Food, what they did, they went and looked at the active ingredients in this pesticide, not just the brand name, but the active ingredients, and showed how these things have been banned in international countries that are actually shipping them to Kenya. Because it's not just the brand names change. We all know that they will. You might not even find Roundup right now, or these are the pesticides, but they have changed the brand. But if you are keen to look at the active ingredients and that atlas, it was a downloadable document. I'll attach it here in the description. You'll find that there are so many banned ingredients that are still being constituted in our different brands. And what we need to do is be keen to note those active ingredients and avoid them. Just go the organic way if you can, because we have been trained on biopesticides, biofoliars and all these things. So even like this, I gave up looking for nomas and guaches. Reason being, every time I would buy them, I was not an expert to know what to look for on the skin. But you'd find that inside it is really bad. And you bought these things at 150 or 200, and these are 3 pieces, and you find like you can't even access 20% of the flesh of that ndoma or guache. So I gave up on them until I was able to access them through the organic market. And then we also got a vendor just nearby where we live. I don't think she's organic, but at least they are good. The reason why I stopped using those ziles in the haribika is because I know these toxins accumulate in your body. You might not feel the effect right now, but if I start eating them in my 20s, by the time I'm in my 50s, I'll have issues with those toxicity levels. So there's this booklet that MCDA is developing, right? It's organic and safer alternatives to dangerous farm chemicals. It will be launched soon. I'll show you a close-up. It will be launched soon, and you can learn what to use as an alternative for growing your veggies, growing your foods. You can use, there are so many alternatives that you can use as opposed to the chemicals that are available in the market. And this is an important document or thing to have. Like, do a garlic extract, combine a few things and make a paste or a spray and spray it on your crops to do away with the different fries. And the good thing is these things work. We have shown and proven them in our farms. They are, personally, I've grown organic. Carol has grown organic and she can testify, Rachael as well, and others, a few of us, there's a gang of us that we are building up momentum to show that the organic way works. This conversation is becoming long, but we need to end it at, as parents, we need to check what our kids are eating at home, what our kids are eating at school, and influence the kids and the administration to change what we are feeding children. We shall continue talking more and more because these ladies can really share a lot of info. They are well informed, and we need to tell people more and more. Look out for our content on our YouTube page that is coming up for the Organic Farmers Market. where we'll be sharing more content. Once we create it, I will also share the link in this YouTube. Yes, and a PDF version of this book, and as well as the pesticide atlas that we will share. Thank you so much for watching up to this point. Thank you so much.
Food safety is wealth.
Yes, food safety is wealth. Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye. This, yeah,
Yeah, already.